Welcome to the new YouTube channel. If you haven't already done it, hit the subscribe button to follow us all season long for updates and content. So happy that you're here. It's going to be a great year.
Let's start with Seattle. They're going on the road against New England. An easy win, right?
There's no such thing as an easy win in the National Football League. A very tough environment, a 10 a.m. start, which is always tough for West Coast teams. But they talked about it in the pregame. Pete Carroll started this. Hey, if it's a 10 a.m. start, we're getting there Friday. We're getting there late Friday. We're staying there all day Saturday, getting adjusted, doing the walkthrough, and then we're playing on Sunday. And they're continuing that tradition with Mike Macdonald, and it seemed to have helped this team. That defensive line, Boye Mafe is a player. Thank goodness he came out of this game relatively unscathed. I think he said a knee contusion or a thigh contusion, which is fine. But the story of this game is, again, Geno Smith goes out there and puts on a clinic passing the football. If it wasn't for about 5 or 6 drops in this game, Mitchell, he might have had 400 yards, and this game might not have been as close as it was at the end, but it was a nail-biter at the end thanks to a Julian Love blocked field goal, a 48-yard field goal, which could have pretty much iced the game for the New England Patriots and won them the game. He blocked that huge play in the game. The offense goes down, drives the length of the field, gets a field goal, takes it into OT. The defense does their thing, and then Geno takes him right down the field into field goal range, and the rest is history, as they say. Zach Charbonnet had a solid game on the ground. Wasn't great, but had some very key receptions throughout the game. But the story, DK Metcalf, 10 for 129 and a touchdown, but JSN, 12 catches for 117, no TDs, but Geno was out there distributing, dishing the ball out. The defense played solid in spurts. They got to Jacoby Brissett a lot more than the stat book would show. They could not get him to the ground. A very strong quarterback, very poised in the pocket, very patient, and he really made the defense pay when they missed him. And they had him a couple of times, Mitchell. They had him dead to rights. And you got to give Mike Macdonald a lot of credit for drawing up these blitzes, but these guys got to get home. But it turned out that it did not matter because Geno was better on this day than Jacoby Brissett and the New England Patriots. He really played well, especially down the stretch. Another game-winning drive for Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks. And Mitchell, they're right now, they're alone atop the NFC West standings with the San Francisco 49ers losing this week to the Minnesota Vikings. And we'll get to that game in a second. But it's going to be a cool little deal right now because the Miami Dolphins come limping into Seattle, into Lumen Field, with Skylar Thompson at quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa obviously out with the concussion. We all sat there Thursday night praying for him and his family. Seems to be okay. We don't know what the outcome of that whole situation is going to be. I think they likely put him on IR, but we have no idea. But it looks like Skylar Thompson will be coming to Seattle to play against the Seattle Seahawks. Obviously, they still got Tyreek Hill. They still got Jalen Waddle. They still got playmakers all over the field. But that's a devastating blow for that team coming into a very hostile environment. The 12s are going to be even more hyped. They see hope in their team. New coach, rookie coach, starting 2-0, has their team playing inspired football. Their quarterback is playing really, really good football. They're sitting atop their division. I mean, you couldn't feel better about the start to this season for the Seattle Seahawks. Have already gone through some adversity. Mitchell, they're feeling good.
Richard, I'll say this. Going into the season, the next level up for Seattle was adding another offensive component. We knew Mike Macdonald was going to bring a new look to that defense, but JSN was this untapped potential with the team. We saw it today, 12 receptions with 117 yards. It doesn't get much better than that. This team, if they can level up offensively, Richard, they're going to win next week, right?
Mitchell, I don't guarantee any wins, Mitchell. Not in this league.
I understand that. They're going to win next week. I don't know what you want to bet on that. They are going to win next week, and they're going to look the Detroit Lions in the eyes at 3-0 on Monday Night Football Richard, this team right here, we already talked about it. The hype is real with this team. If they can get JSN involved, look out. The Seattle Seahawks, 3-0 next week. I'm calling it already, Richard.
Well, Mitchell, I hope so. Obviously, Tyler Lockett was also involved in this game, had a crucial pass interference call on him late in the game during the game-tying drive, had another critical reception in overtime, still making an impact, had a huge game last week to help them get the win. This team is going to be fun to watch for a long time. It looks like they have the pieces in place, even when the defense doesn't play as well as they want to. But you got to give a lot of credit to Leonard Williams because he had a sack and a half, but the stat sheet does not do justice to the impact that he had on this ball game. He was causing havoc on the D-line all day. Byron Murphy as well had impacts. He only had a half a sack, but he was also creating chaos, trying to limit Ramondre Stevenson all day. He still had a solid game, but those were tough yards that they forced him to get. The Patriots go to the Jets this Thursday on Prime Video at 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll be there in New York. Mitchell, I'm getting my freaking flyer miles. That's for sure.
I know you are. I know you are. Let's stick with the NFC West. I know you got one side of the fence that you're happy with, the other side of the fence, not so much. This is the life you live, being a 49er and a Seahawk fan, if you will. Richard, the San Francisco 49ers go to the Vikings and lose. Take the L, 23-17. Let's switch the cap. Richard, the Sam Darnold revenge game. Here we are.
Well,
your thoughts on this
Sam
game?
Darnold, Mitchell. Great game. It's been 30 years, Mitchell, over 30 years since the San Francisco 49ers have won in Minnesota. I don't know what it is about the water in Minnesota or the food.
It's weird,
man. Environment.
They cannot seem to put together a great game. And if you look at the stat sheet, Brock Purdy, 28 of 36, 319, a touchdown, a very costly interception. I kind of saw that coming earlier in the game. He was able to fit one in very tight coverage to Kyle Juszczyk. And it just looked like, hey, if he does that again, it's going to be tough because he's going through his reads. He's saying, bang, bang, bang. This is my last read. I got to get the ball out. He's hitting his back foot, and the defense is anticipating. The windows are tight. They're starting to understand where he's looking, where he's expecting to go with the ball, where his last read is. And they made a play, tipped the ball up in the air, and made an interception. Deebo Samuel had a really good game, caught some really tough passes over the middle, 8 catches for 110. George Kittle, 7 for 76, had to go out to get an IV midway through the game. Nick Bosa had a really good game, 2 sacks, but they did not generate enough pressure on Sam Darnold. They allowed him to throw a 97-yard touchdown pass to Justin Jefferson. Unacceptable, no matter what part of the game you're in, no matter what situation, no matter if it's backed up, whatever the situation is. You got 2 safeties guarding Justin Jefferson. He split the defense. You should never put those guys in that situation. He should be doubled at all times. He's the best player on their football team. He's not a guy that you should let loose or not have an eye on or say, oh, they're going to run the ball. Let them run the ball. Let them run the ball in that situation. Too deep. We stopped Justin Jefferson. They ran a play like that in week 1, had some success. It was a post corner to Justin Jefferson, had some success. This week it was a corner post. And he was able to get behind the defense. Sam Darnold threw a beautiful football for the 97-yard touchdown. Justin Jefferson ends up going out with an injury in the ball game. Fred Warner, all-pro Fred Warner, deserved the MVP, the game ball, everything in this game because he freaking put the team on his back. There were numerous situations where it appeared the Minnesota Vikings were about to really, really break this game wide open. Aaron Jones was on his way to another touchdown to a touchdown in this ball game. And again, Fred Warner's peanut punch, bang, coming through again. He had one against Breece Hall last week. He had another one this week, along with an interception, along with a sack. I mean, you're talking about defensive player of the year kind of statistics, Mitchell. They're doing what they can defensively. They need more from this offense. You can't be that inconsistent. Obviously, it's tough going against Flores and that very aggressive, zero pressure defense the Minnesota Vikings bring, but you have to figure it out. You cannot have a game like this. You cannot have the turnover that Brock Purdy had.
You gotta make some plays when it counts. They had a chance. Jordan Mason had another very good game, 20 carries for 100 yards, was really imposing his will throughout the game, but just too many mistakes. Too lackadaisical offensively and defensively. They made enough plays, but a lot of it was Fred Warner making crucial plays in very critical situations as the Minnesota Vikings are driving down to score another touchdown. Both of those plays happened in the red zone area, which is incredible, but it's also concerning because why are they in the red zone area this many times and him having to play Superman in this way? There needs to be more pressure up front. We got to get to the quarterback. But give credit to Kevin O'Connell and this Minnesota Vikings offense and their defense. Brian Flores, the plan that he drew up for Kyle Shanahan, it's tough to replicate. Kevin O'Connell drew up a beautiful game plan, running the ball, throwing the football. So he deserves a lot of credit. Sam Darnold, of course, 17 of 26, 268, 2 touchdowns, threw an interception in his revenge game, got his revenge. Ty Chandler had 10 receptions for 82 yards. Justin Jefferson, 4 receptions, 133, and a touchdown. Pat Jones, two sacks. Oh, Mitchell, it's going to be tough.
Richard, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this. The 49ers took a loss, and this is a huge loss. I mean, you expected them to win this game. The Vikings are not the same team as they were last year with Kirk Cousins. Everyone expected a creep down with Sam Darnold at the helm. Richard, Brandon Ayuk just signs a huge extension. He catches 4 passes for 43 yards. I mean, this guy's been non-existent the last 2 games. I know he missed all of training camp. How big of a distraction was this offseason? Is it lingering into the regular season now?
I don't think it's lingering, but I do think if you miss training camp, you don't develop the same rapport with the quarterback. Brock Purdy's not looking for him in a way that he looked for him last year. That's why you see Deebo Samuel's taking a brunt of the receptions. I think if Ricky Purcell was out there, he would be getting a lot of attention because they just developed that kind of chemistry, that kind of rapport with the time that Brandon Ayuk was missing with his hold in during his contract dispute. So I think there's just a bit of a disconnect there that'll slowly but surely get reconnected as the season progresses, but you can see it right now. There's just not the same rhythm the same chemistry between Brock Purdy and Brandon Ayuk right now. That'll change as the season goes on. But CMC going to IR with the Achilles tendonitis. I got a lot of history with Achilles tendonitis. He's going through the necessary steps to get it taken care of. He's, you got to get certain procedures, you got to get certain things to get the pain mitigated. They always say there's not a concern of rupturing, and you never want to believe there is. But it is a really, really painful and debilitating injury that makes it very difficult to be effective as a player, and especially in a game where you're making split-second decisions, you're anticipating your body doing what you expect it to do. With an injury like that, your body's not going to. You're not going to be able to push off that foot. You're not going to be able to trust your steps. You're not going to be able to trust your instincts because you're going to be wholly mentally concerned about where your placement of that foot. Is the pain there? In the back of your mind, concerned about maybe it's going to rupture on each step. That's not a way you could play at a high level in the National Football League. So he's trying to get to a place where he can play more pain-free and really be able to showcase the talents that his God-given talent and ability. I think he's going to be fine, but he does need a couple weeks to get that thing healthy and to get to that place. The 49ers go down to L.A. to play the Rams, who are coming off a devastating loss to the Arizona Cardinals, where they just got beat up and down the football field. They did not look good. That offensive line took a beating. I think Arizona had 5 sacks in the ball game, and we're going to get to that game a little bit later. But it's Levi South. I know the faithful are going to be there, and they're going to show up in a big way. They need to, but the San Francisco 49ers need this win. They need to get back on the winning track. Brock Purdy needs to get his confidence back, to get back to where he believes in himself. And this offense, again, they need to get Brandon Ayuk involved. You paid the man. You got to draw some stuff up to him and get him in rhythm early on, even if it's simple stuff, one-on-one, backside, 3-by-1, old school football. Just get the man some touches. one-on-one go balls. I mean, they were doing that last year against Pittsburgh to open the season. I mean, it's old school. They're playing one, they're playing quarters. You can find one-on-ones if you want them. You gotta take those shots and give them opportunities. We can't play conservative. And I don't know if it's the offensive line and Kyle trusting that they could block this front of the Minnesota Vikings or anticipating Flores bringing more pressure. But next week, they're going to have to take some more shots. They're going to have to get more aggressive and get off their heels and play more sound and just confidently throughout this ball game.
They got to get back to who they are.